Hey guys, this is CK at CK Education, and today I want to talk about the importance of not rushing great SAT scores. You can't rush great SAT scores. And here's what I mean by this. Where do I begin? When I started thinking about doing, becoming an SAT prep teacher, I had zero experience. And before that, I was an engineer, I was a consultant, I was in a completely different industry. I always loved teaching and I loved observing, organizing, analyzing things, teaching it, explaining it, sharing the information. Always loved that. That was just always, even as an engineer, I taught certain engineering principles and concepts and philosophies and things like this. When I did consulting, I did a lot of teaching. So I always loved teaching. So this was sort of a natural progression, I guess, of my passion for teaching. Is just another topic. But it was a topic that I was completely unfamiliar with. And if you went to my website and read my homepage, you would see where I write about I've never taken the SAT before. I had never taken it before because when I was going to college, we didn't have to take it. We took something called the WPCT test in Washington State. I had never taught SAT before. When I started teaching and I left my corporate job, I actually started teaching just essay writing. And I loved writing. I still love writing. So I love teaching writing. And I did that. I didn't start out teaching SAT. This was more out of a demand that I had gotten from so many parents, and they call me and say, do you do SAT or grammar as well? No, I don't. Do you do the reading section as well? No, no, I don't. Do you do the math? Do you do anything SAT related? Well, just the SAT essay, because at the time, prior to March 2016, the SAT test had a required writing section. And so I only taught that and academic writing and college admissions, essay writing and things like that. I didn't teach the SAT. But when I decided one day that I would teach the SAT, this was an enormous mountain for me to climb. It was an enormous topic. In the beginning, almost too overwhelming for me because it's a big, it's really, it covers a lot of things. And so I started researching what other people did and what other companies did, what other prep centers did, what other tutors and teachers did. And I found out in my research that nearly everyone taught SAT the same way. So I thought that was the way to do it because everyone did it the same way. Well, what is that way? That way is getting a prep book, whether it's College Board or Kaplan or Gruber's or Barron's or McGraw-Hill or Princeton Review or College Board or SparkNotes or whatever the book is. There's so many books out there. It's basically getting a prep book and it's going over problems with your students. So you start with the first test and you have them take it. Whatever they get wrong, you go over the problems with it and you explain the problems. And you just do this endlessly until test day. Now, the problem with this method is that it doesn't work. Okay, so let me just make it real simple. I made another YouTube video on this on why taking practice tests don't work. The reason I say it doesn't work, because you always hear someone say, well, I practice from used a prep book for practice and I got a, 1570 or something. You always have someone like that. Of course, you always have exceptions. You even have some people who never looked at a prep book before and they just sit down and take the SAT and get, like 1550. You're always going to have those exceptions. But that's like saying, I know someone, they didn't do any work at all. They never went to college. They never did anything remotely close to earning money. And yet they went to the local 7-Eleven and they bought a lotto ticket and they won $50 million. So I'm going to go do that too. He didn't have to work. He just went to the local 7-Eleven and bought a lotto ticket and he won. So I'm going to do the same thing. And you could probably spend your life every single day after that buying a lotto ticket and you'll end up at the end of your life not winning even one time the same amount of money that that other person won. Okay, the odds are like that. I mean, for The vast majority, everybody else, not that genius guy who, or that brilliant girl who doesn't have to prep and they basically do that. Or you get the kid who says, I used a prep book, I used 3 prep books, and I studied 3 hours every single day. Again, most students don't study 3 hours every single day for SAT. They're not that motivated. Now, if you're one of those motivated kids like that, the more power to you, and you probably will do great. But I've had students over the past, since 2009, nearly 1,000 students, and teaching SAT for 20,000 hours, me personally, not hiring other people to do it, but me doing it personally. And I can tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it is crystal clear to me that taking practice tests doesn't raise scores. By and large, that is not a method that the majority of students can use and see great results. How do I know that? Because I've had many, countless students who have done that, who have used prep books and have done countless problems. I had this one kid, I said in a previous video, who took 34 practice tests, full-length tests, got a 50-point increase. A 50-point increase. I told her, you could have just gotten a good night's sleep and gotten 50 points. Okay. So we had very little time. She came to me as like late in her summer vacation after her junior year. We had like 2 months. My students are with me 10 to 12 months. She was with me. I just didn't have any space. I gave her whatever spots I could. We worked on it, and her scores, SAT score went up by about 160 points. Okay, this is after she took 35 practice tests. She went to this prep center for 1.5 years, wasted time and money, and her score went up at the end of that effort, 50 points. She comes to me exhausted. She comes to me almost hopeless, like, I tried everything I could. I thought, I don't know what's wrong. I said, you're going to have to delete everything in your mind if you can, and you're going to have to learn my method. And she did, and we didn't even have time to go over everything, but within that time, her score went up about 160 points. And so I've had many students like that who took practice tests, who do this, who did that, who did this. It doesn't work. And the other thing is, I found out that a lot of prep centers, because they're predominantly profit oriented, they'll take as many students as they can, and they'll do as many hours as they can, and they'll just do as much as they can to fill in the time. This is why a lot of prep centers and teachers, they'll do like vocab study. Like I see a lot of them doing vocab study. They'll memorize lots and lots of words because that takes a lot of time. It's an easy time filler, okay? But it's a complete waste of time. It doesn't do any good in raising your score. You can memorize 2,000 vocab words, and on the next test, you might see one of those. It's just not going to do it. Even before the SAT changed, when they used to have vocab on it, I would only teach my kids maybe 300-400 words, key critical words that would show up a lot. Everything else is a waste of time. So what I did was, after I did all the research, I tried a lot of different things. I looked into all kinds of SAT prep methods, and I came up with a system. In the first year, I came up with a system that I thought would work, and I tested it on several students, and my first 2 students got 300-point increases. Now, this is back in the day when it was out of 2,400, okay? And this was a time when I was reading books on SAT prep, teachers and former admissions officials from colleges who would help kids with SAT, and they would write books, and I read these books that claimed and they were so proud that their students were getting 150-point increases, 200-point increases. So when my first 2 students got 300-point increases, I was utterly amazed. Even I didn't know that they were going to get those kind of increases. All I knew was that what I had worked. And what I had and what I was doing with my students was very much not like what everybody else was doing. Whereas a lot of these people were doing intensive, you're meeting them 3 days a week and you're doing 2 hours every session. Sometimes in the summers, they're doing 6 hours. Okay, they're there all day. And they're basically, forcing information down into the kids' minds. And the problem with that is they can't digest it. They can't digest all that. And what you cannot digest, you can't master. And what you can't master, you can't use for the real test. So I often say, don't mistake activity for achievement. Just because you've done a lot of things doesn't mean that you're going to get results. It just means you're tired. It just means you've done a lot of things, okay? But it's not how much you do, it's what results you get. And the results you get are based on what kind of things you do and how much you've mastered those things, not just how many things you've done. It's not merely a quantitative measure. And so, those of you who know my system, I meet with my students only once a week for 1.5 hours. I meet with my students a maximum of 6 hours a month, whereas some of these centers are meeting 6 hours a day in the summer. I meet my students no more than 6 hours a month. So let's say a student's with me for 2 months. That's only 12 hours of class time. Okay, so in that small period of time, I teach my students the things that are important for raising their scores, and I go at their pace. I make sure that they are mastering those things. Now, I cannot force a student to master it. I will do everything I can to have them master it, but some of them, they just don't master it. There's only so many times that I could go over the same thing, because otherwise we'll be stuck for 3 years, and we don't have 3 years, okay? So we have to move on. If a student refuses to master what I teach them, then, I knowing that they haven't mastered that, I have to continue on, and at some point we have to do full-length tests, and at some point they have to take the test. Now, the results are still better than using any other system, but in my mind, I know they could have gotten a much higher score if they would have mastered what I taught them. Now, here's a problem. Some parents and some students want to rush this. Hey, Mr. Kim, can you just give them a lot more? Can you just give them a lot more problems? Can you go over a lot more things? And can you add the reading section now? And can we just do all the sections all together? And I always say, no, you can't. Okay. It's no different than me being, let's say I'm a gourmet chef, like I'm a world-renowned chef, and there's a certain process in how I make the food. That's what I'm known for, is making these gourmet dishes, and they're delicious, and people love these dishes. And then a customer comes in and says, I'm kind of in a hurry. Can you rush that dish real quick? I said, I'm sorry, that dish takes 45 minutes to make. 45 minutes? I don't have 45 minutes. Then you might want to go down the street to a fast food restaurant, because my food, the way that I prepare, the way that my clients over the years have loved it, my customers have loved it, it takes 45 minutes to cook that food. And my customers know that that's how long it takes, and that they wait for that food, because that's the kind of food that they want those results. Yeah, but can you just make an exception, just go real fast and I can't, because then it wouldn't be my food. So again, better to go down the street to a fast food restaurant, and they could deliver food to you, they can deliver, they could give it to you within 5 minutes. But I heard your food was the best. I want your food. Well, if you want my food, then you have to wait 45 minutes. You can't rush great food. And it's the same thing. It's the same analogy, same metaphor. But Mr. Kim, I heard you raise scores. I heard you really good. Yes, but there's a certain process that I use to do that. And the reason my students get such great score increases, is that there is a method and a system that I've created, and I use that. And if you ask me to rush that, I can't. I cannot. It is because I don't rush it. It is because that system is used that my students get such big score increases, even when many of the other or any other system that they used didn't work. I tried this. I tried all these things, but it didn't work. But those are all different than my system. And so when they come and they learn my system, but I don't understand. All these things didn't work, but I used this and my score went up. Yes, because it's a completely different system. It's not copied by somebody, right? And so it's not a cookie cutter system. It's a very customized system. And sometimes people want to rush it. It cannot be rushed. The reason I'm making this video is that over the years, I've had a lot of parents, a lot of students. I understand that nobody loves doing SAT prep. I understand that. But if you want great results, if you want a high increase in your score, a big improvement in your score, you've got to follow my system, and you've got to let it take its time. I am not trying to hold any student any longer than I have to hold them. Okay, I want this message to be so clear to you parents. I am not trying to delay, to extend, to prolong the time that your kid is with me. I am not about that at all. This sounds like I'm tooting my own horn, and it may even sound arrogant. I'm not saying this out of that kind of heart. But as it's been said on my website for many, many, many years, I have a year-long waiting list. Right now, I'm making this video. Today is the end of October 2020. Parents who have called me, and I've gotten even several calls today and yesterday and the previous weeks. Parents who call me now wanting to have their students enroll with me have to wait until March. It's October right now. November, December, January, February. They have to wait 5 months. And all I'm saying, the only reason I'm saying that is just to tell you, I don't need to hold my students longer than I need to. I don't want to do that. I want them to be done. But in order to get great results, I can't rush the process. I can't rush the system. Okay, so I just want you to understand that fully. Now, I don't have time to explain this to every parent. That's why I try to put a lot of information on my website so that you guys read it before you ever enroll your kids with me. I have a YouTube channel so that you can try to get as much information as possible from me about how I do it, what I think, what my philosophy is. You have to feel comfortable sending your kid to me. You have to feel comfortable, giving me your kid for a year. Because that's about what it takes to get great results. And again, it's only 6 hours a month. So when I say, a student has been with me for 6 months, it's not like we've been meeting every day. 6 months, 6 hours a month. That's 36 hours of class time. But in that time, it's so important that we allow the student to digest and master the information, because without that, I can teach a kid 10 times what I'm teaching right now. Every session, I can teach them that. I can just give them lots and lots and lots of information, tons of packets. The reason I don't do that is that it's just not going to do any good. It's not, okay? So here's my plea to parents, okay? If you send your kid to me, please read all the information on my website, watch a lot of these YouTube videos, and understand what you're getting yourself into. I will do my absolute best to have your kid see big improvements in his or her SAT score. But there's a process that I created that absolutely works, and you got to let me go through that process. You cannot rush it. You cannot ask me to go faster. You cannot ask me, can you just add more sections? Because that doesn't work. Then you may want to go down the street and go to the fast food restaurant, because they can give you maybe what you want. But with me, that's not how it works. That's not what works. And so I just wanted to make that very clear. Okay. If you have any questions about this, now, of course, you can contact me and ask me. But again, I'm trying to put all the information out there as much as possible, because I don't have time to respond to every parent and answer their questions in this way. So anyway, I hope you found this video to be helpful, and hopefully you get a little bit better insight into how and why I do what I do. All right. So again, but I appreciate it. I appreciate you watching the video up to this point. And until my next video, I hope you all stay well.